Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you watched our last video, I think I remember saying something along the lines of we're back and turns out we're not, and I'm about to give a little bit of an update of what's been going on here for, to be honest, it's been about a year, which is pretty crazy, but yeah, we'll get into the video and we'll have a look around. Alrighty, I just actually finished filming the entire video, just all in one take, but I forgot to probably say this, and I want to put this at the start of the video because the goal hasn't changed for us, and we still want to be able to grow the best quality crickets or insects just in general for feeders out there. But we also want to be able to grow crickets for human consumption and insects for human consumption. It's still one of our goals that we want to do. Don't know when that goal is going to happen. So I just wanted to say thank you for everyone who's still been paying attention to Schubugs or Just Crickets and asking about buying live feeders and all those things. Greatly appreciate everyone paying attention, but it's also been pretty full on. Like it's to be honest, I've been a little bit embarrassed because I've decided to start this business and put a bunch of money into this thing and it hasn't really worked out. So that's obviously pretty confronting. So I just wanted to say, sorry, haven't been posting, and thanks for everyone for paying attention. And yeah, let's get into the video and explain the whole situation, but we're making progress, which is a positive thing. Okay, so we're in the new facility and I think I'm just gonna get into it. We were obviously having a massive die-off issue, and it started happening around 2023, and because of that massive die-off issue, it was around the time we were just finishing this new facility, and so we were like, beauty, new facility, gonna put all the bugs in there and we're gonna grow millions. But then what ended up happening is we started to see this like dramatic die-off, and we found that all our crickets weren't getting to the full age of where they can actually reproduce and lay eggs. We found that the egg count was really low. We found that 50% of them were dying early. We started to see some like weird genetic mutations, and I'll show you a couple things now as I'm talking about it, like a few videos of the die-off, but then also some of the weird mutations that we saw, some photos and some pretty interesting like things that were happening with our crickets. Now, why did this happen? Now, we didn't change our heat, we didn't change our humidity, we didn't change any of those factors that actually help provide a better environment for crickets. And so we're like, well, why is this actually happening? Why are these dying off? And we eventually got to the point where we were trying all these different things, changing their diet, changing their food, like changing the water, changing the heat, the airflow, the ventilation, like you name it, we changed it. And we couldn't figure out why they were still dying. And after digging a little bit further, because no one really talks about this stuff on social media and no one talks about it in general about cricket breeding, so what I believe is that we actually got really badly inbred. And because of this badly inbreeding, like how did this actually happen? And it was happening because I kept going down to a really small population. Now, I started this cricket farm with 50 crickets in my backyard in Adelaide, and obviously we built a facility and shipping containers, and we probably had about 1 million crickets. It was amazing. But what was happening is we were overselling quite hard, and we're always going down to a really small breeding population. So we're getting down to like maybe 1,000, 2,000 crickets. And we did that across 7 years, but only starting with how many was it? 50 crickets. So starting with like 50 crickets and then overselling, getting down to a small breeding population, this actually caused them to get inbred. So it was nothing to do with the temperature, the humidity, all these other factors. And because they were so badly inbred, I figured, oh, okay, well, I'll bring in some new crickets and new genetics. And because we had such a large population of inbred crickets, it was virtually impossible to be able to outweigh it with new genetics. And so what we were finding is, even though we were bringing in these new genetics, the crickets were still dying. And what happens with crickets is once you start having death in your facility, that smell causes other crickets to die as well. So it was just a forever, never-ending cycle of us not being able to get out of this massive die-off. And it got to about a year ago now where I just said to my old man that, yep, no, we're done. We're going to wipe the whole population and we're going to clean the facility, make sure it's absolutely spotless, and we're going to start again. So we haven't quite got to the stage of getting new crickets in. We are breeding another insect in here at the moment, but we will take you through that in another video. But this is essentially about the inbreeding issue and how we're going to solve it. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to buy in new genetics, start fresh, which is also a tough thing because you have to find healthy, good genetics. And it's the case that because no one communicates here in Australia with like smaller breeders or even the bigger breeders, I feel like everyone's got terrible quality crickets. That's the thing. Like we used to have crickets on our farm that would live for like 4, 5, 6 months. Like they were the healthiest crickets I've ever seen, and people were loving them. But then what we found is that even the ones in the pet shop, everyone knows this. Everyone buys crickets from the pet shop and they just die within a few weeks. Now I've currently bought some crickets from the pet shops here in Adelaide, and I've had some crickets that have lived for about 5 weeks, and I've had some crickets live for about 3 weeks. Now that's obviously a factor of like, we don't know if they were older crickets when we bought them or if they were younger. You don't actually know the age of them, but it's just one of those things where, so now I'm testing to see if I can find the healthiest crickets to be able to start growing crickets again. And I'm also going out into the wild and catching a few crickets as well. So I'll show you a couple videos of the crickets we've got breeding in Adelaide, and then I'll show you a video of like some of the crickets I've been catching out in the wild to see if we can actually grow those, to see if they're going to be better genetics. Because at the end of the day, it's a genetics thing, it's a breeding issue thing, I believe. I don't think we had any viruses here because we saw nothing that suggests, with viruses, what you normally see is a huge, like it's a wipeout, so every single cricket in your facility just dies. And that's not the case here with this situation. I believe it was like 50% of our die-off. The crickets were still living to some extent, they were still reproducing, whereas the viruses that you see like overseas, not here in Australia, the viruses that you see overseas is a complete wipeout. So that's essentially a very short, but as much detail as I can really give into like the last year of what's been happening with the facility. Now, so what we've done here from now is, you can see this room completely cleared out. Now, it's pretty weird to walk in here and not hear chirping, but essentially we had so much, I don't know, dirty, filthy, dead cricket bins, like the floor was dirty, the walls were dirty. So what we've done is I've taken out all these racks, we've taken out all the tubs, we've washed everything, we've cleaned all the racks, but then also down the bottom here too, we used to have a plate down the bottom which didn't allow us to get underneath the bins to clean. And so this is going to be having better airflow, better ventilation, but then we're also going to be able to get underneath here and clean these tubs. And also these racks now are a lot easier. They're a lot lighter to be able to move around. They're not as heavy because they don't have that extra weight with a kilo or 2 or 3, maybe even 5 kilos, that plate down the bottom, probably heavier to be honest. And so yeah, we've gotten rid of that, which is amazing. And then now as well, because what was happening, we took out all these tubs and we had dead crickets like everywhere, all over the facility. It was, to be honest, it was really disgusting. And we've also got this room here. And sorry for the echo, but we want to get this room full as well. So a fair bit has happened. I'm just going to move out of here because we've got a bit of an echo. So a fair bit has happened on the farm in the last like year, and it's been, to be honest, a bit of a headache, and it's been a really full-on, intense few weeks trying to get this facility going, because we do want to start growing crickets again. I mean, they're a great insect. They're a great feeder insect. Like, the crickets, you can get 600 eggs from a cricket. They're super fit, super efficient, super fast, quick growing, and animals love them, reptiles love them. So we want to eventually get that going again. And yeah, we're going to look into also growing other insects because we have the space here on the farm. So there'll be another video later on about what we're actually doing with growing other insects, which is going to be pretty cool. But yeah, that's pretty much the gist of what's been happening, and hopefully throughout this video I've got enough like other little snippets that I've taken on my phone. It's not very good quality because when we were going through the die-off, like honestly I just didn't feel like filming any videos because it's embarrassing, and it's also very full on that we went through this whole process and we were still having dead crickets. So nightmare, but we've made it to the end, and I want to be better at keeping people up to date about what's happening with the cricket farm. I want to try and find a solution to these crickets, and I want to find a solution to be able to provide better insects, healthier insects for everyone. That's what I want. So, alrighty guys, thanks for listening. I know it's a bit of a rant, and I know it's a bit of a chaotic video because it's all just done in one snippet essentially. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.